Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you all. Welcome to our alumni and, of course, our new award recipients. We always love having y'all on these calls. I'm Meredith Walker, for those of you who I don't know, the Executive Director at the Hall of Fame. And I normally don't moderate these, but I am today because not only is Charlie Amato a Texas Business Hall of Fame legend, he's also a very good friend. So I feel very fortunate to be leading the conversation today. For those of you who have not participated in these calls, I'm going to ask him a few just kind of fun, light questions. The goal of this series is really not to talk heavy business, but to get to know personality and habits of these amazing business leaders. So my questions will be light and easy in that way. Y'all can ask whatever you want. So after I'm done with my questions, if you have a question today, please send a note to Stephanie Tillison on our team in the chat bar that you have a question. She'll give me your name and you will ask that question live. You don't need to tell her your question, just indicate your interest in asking one. So we only have 30 minutes. All of you have read Charlie's bio. I will just say he founded SWBC, an international financial services company, in 1976. That company has skyrocketed. It has 2,500 employees today. It's nationwide, if not worldwide. It's always recognized as a top employer, top company in Texas. Minority owner of the San Antonio Spurs. You can see in his bio, he's received every award known to man. He is one of our incredibly popular legends. He doesn't have an enemy in the world. And I hope that he considers one of his millions of honors, the Texas Business Hall of Fame honor, one of his most important, which he was inducted into our organization in 2013. And I can't think of many people more deserving. So Charlie, thanks for all you've done in business and for all you do in the community, and of course for all you've done for us. So we are very grateful. So I'm going to get started with my interrogation. Let's start easy with what you consider to be your greatest achievement.
Oh, my, I guess greatest achievements, family, of course, and this great company that Gary Dudley and I were able to build. SWBC is made up of 14 to 15 different companies. It's hard to keep up sometimes. It's just been a joy to build this company and to work with all the people I'm very able to work with on a daily basis. It's a lot of fun. And of course, being a minority on the Spurs, I have 5 beautiful championship rings. And, we won the lottery last year. Yeah, we have an investors meeting tomorrow, which is exciting. We'll talk about the upcoming season with our new guy. We lost by 1 point last night, but that was not by design, but we're not looking at him. We're looking at some players who are trying to make the team. So that's why things like that happen. So we gave a lot of people a chance to play.
Well, I'm just curious, something I've never asked you actually is when you were growing up or in college, did you think you'd found a company? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? I actually don't know the answer to that one.
Well, I never knew I wanted to be one until I took a placement test my senior year in college. And they said that's what I probably should do. They even said become an actor, believe that or not. And I knew I didn't want to do that. But growing up, no, I never had the confidence to think I could do anything like that. It took me a while to grow into that.
You grew up in Texas City. Were either one of your parents entrepreneurs?
Yes, my father was. He owned a tugboat company. But
okay.
And they also tied up ships that came into Texas City. But my mother and father, they only went to the 8th grade. So they couldn't help me with my algebra or literature or things like that. So, but they were very intelligent and they were just self-taught.
My grandfather used to always say there's a difference between intelligence and being smart, and smart's the only thing that counts.
Whatever.
But so historical figures. I've gone off script here. What historical figure do you admire the most?
Well, you're not going to believe it, but I spend a lot of time in England. Winston Churchill. I watched that movie twice on an airplane and 3 times at my house, the darkest hour. And I just think he overcame a lot of obstacles during World War II, and he kept England afloat until the United States was able to join the war. And I think he's a brave man. He was under a great deal of pressure. I could not believe the people voted him out after the war. That kind of blows me away.
I know it's kind of shockingly tragic. A lot of people argue his real talent was leading with charisma, that it was his charisma that carried that country and sustained its confidence. And it's interesting that you admire him so much because I think you very much lead with charisma.
Well,
So
thank you. I think he had a head start on me. If the movie was accurate, he at breakfast every morning he had a bourbon and water with his eggs.
yeah, no one can explain how he lived such a long life, a cigar and drinking heavily every day.
Yeah,
Good genes, I guess.
exactly. I've never smoked, but I've had a few cocktails.
So, public figures you admire most. Okay, so we talked about Winston Churchill. Maybe we can stay out of politics here. I don't know. Maybe there is a policy
No,
figure right
I'll
now.
avoid politics. Yeah, as you know, I was on the Dallas Fed board for 6 years and on the community advisory board for 3 years. So I had a 9-year relationship with the Dallas Fed. And when that happens, they send you to Washington. And I was able to work with Jerome Powell. He was my instructor when I became a director. You have to go through orientation. And I think they're under a great deal of pressure to do the right thing. They're non-political. And, I met Janet Yellen and Stanley Fisher and all these great folks that work for a lot less money than they could make in the private world, private industry. They serve our country, and I think they're wonderful people. So Jerome Powell, I really hit it off with him. He was a board of governor at the time when he was instructing me, but now he's chairman.
Speaking of being on that board, I mean, civically, I would say you're one of our most engaged legends in terms of policy and politics and civic and duty. Do you do that because it's interesting to you on a personal level, or are you mostly engaged in that way for business?
Yeah, without question, it definitely helps our business. We have to know people.
Right.
I'm not an accountant that sits in the corner office that's dark without lights. I have to be out and about. And the more people you know is it helps. It helps a lot. There's not anybody that I just can't pick up the phone if I have an issue. As I'll tell you before the call, I was in Washington 2 weeks ago, right before the possible shutdown. And it's my dad says sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I have a wonderful, you don't have Rolodexes anymore because everything's automated, but chances are I could pick up the phone and call people in different industries and get something done.
Yeah.
Make your friends before you need them, I was told as a young kid. And I have
That
a
makes
lot
a lot of sense.
I have a lot of friends.
Okay, and you also have a lot of possessions. What is your most treasured possession?
Well, family, of course. And then I love my company. It's a joy to come to work every day. I never tire of it. I get tired of the traveling that goes along with it. And I've traveled like the last 4 weeks in a row, leaving again this Sunday to go to Philadelphia. But I love my toys, my lake house at Horseshoe Bay, my ranch in Lakey, Texas, my exotic animals from all over the world. That's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. And I also love being a part of the Spurs. It's something that whenever you win a championship in professional sports, it's something that's an excitement you can't really get if you close a big deal in business. We close a lot of big deals and we make a lot of great acquisitions. There's excitement that goes along with that, but nothing like sports. I had dinner with Jerry Jones 4 weeks ago in Dallas and Stephen Jones, the Jones family. And I don't think it's possible to get close to people like that without being a part of that fraternity, so to speak. And I know, of course, Tillman Fertitta in Houston, and we all know each other. Mark Cuban, as you well know, we all know each other. And
Speaking of Mark Cuban,
the Astros, huh?
Speaking of Mark Cuban, the Mavs are playing in Madrid tonight, I read. Do the Spurs do international to make
We
demo
have
type
in the
games?
past, we played in Milan, but it's not on our schedule this year. But with
Yeah.
our new, because of Victor Wembanyama, our new draft choice, our lottery pick, for the first time ever, the San Antonio Spurs are getting sponsorship inquiries from Europe and from Asia and from Mexico and Latin America. So it's become an international sport, and he speaks 4 languages fluently. And you're going to see more and more of that. We play a game in Mexico City every year,
Oh,
but
that's
that's about
right. I knew that.
the moment. I think that's going to change, and I'll know more tomorrow. But nothing scheduled
Interesting.
this year. But we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I'm going to skip some of these because I know there's already some questions, but so you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but where are you the happiest?
Well, believe it or not, I'm happy at work. I really am. Some of my best friends work here, and but I totally relax at Horseshoe Bay or my ranch. Or if
Okay.
I go on a European vacation, which I do occasionally,
I want your
get away, do
life.
some good pasta. Huh?
I want your
What?
life. I want your life.
I have a great life. I really do. And that's one of the things that Jerry Jones and I talked about. He's 80, about to be 81, and he said he's had such a wonderful life it scares him to death if anything ever happens to him where he has to slow down.
Yeah.
He said he loves getting out of bed every day. Back home, I grew up in a refinery town, and all my buddies I went to school with that did not go off to college, they work in these refineries and they count every day till they can retire. I've never done that, and I'm just so blessed to live the lifestyle, that I'm living. Many of the other legends are living.
And to love what you do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I mean, that's the key. I think that's just as important as the brains, if I have any.
No question. Okay. If you could change one thing, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience. If you could change one thing about yourself, your worst habit or whatever, what would it be? Or what do you wish you were better at?
I wish I were not as hyper as I am. I want everything yesterday. I wish I could be more detailed oriented. When I read a book, I read every page of every line and every page, every paragraph. But if I'm doing other things, I'm a scanner. And I pick it up that way. But when you're doing that, you miss things. And
Yeah.
I kind of wish I could slow down my personality a tad bit. But if I did, I wouldn't be me.
I know that feeling, and you probably wouldn't have accomplished as much. So it's usually people's worst habits that are also what made them successful, right? So, uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
okay, so I'm going to turn this over. I think you know Samantha Snaps. Samantha, I'm glad you're
Mhm.
on the call today. Why don't you ask the first question?
Um, good good morning, sir. Thanks
Good
so much for
morning.
your time today. It's always a privilege to hear you speak and to share your perspective on life. I'm a reservist here on the weekend, and during the week, I'm a co-founder of a manufacturing company here in Texas that's scaling and looking to buy or build. And so, for obvious reasons, I'm personally curious, based on your tenure at the Fed, if you forecast interest rates to go up or down or stay the same over the next 6 to 12 months.
I think we're in the tail of it. If we get another interest rate, I think we'll get maybe one more, but because of what's going on in Israel right now and other issues, that may not occur. The jobs report was really good last week, and that may have really made the Fed rethink their position about raising one more time. But no one ever knows till they get behind those closed doors. I know I voted on that for several years and gave them my opinion, but I'm a has-been. But I think we're at the tail of it, though. If we get one, there'll be maybe one more 25 basis points.
Okay, thanks, Samantha. Okay, Craig Cummings, you have a question?
I do. Hey, Charlie, Craig Cummins.
Yeah,
I'm talking to you today from Austin, Texas. I grew up in the DC metro area. My father was a Air Force veteran. My mom worked for the Army. Both my brothers went to the West Point. I went to West Point. So kind of a
Wow.
military family. Anyway,
The family business.
I'm a happy Texan now, but I've been just being in this room with you. It's made me reflect about Dan Snyder and the Redskins, and I grew up and now the Commanders, and
Right.
I could not root for that team as long as Dan Snyder was the owner. And since his departure, it's like this dark cloud has left Washington, and I think the NFL, and I guess where I'm going with this question is, I don't think I realized the impact of the owners on a sports team and how they, their culture like really transcends. Like I didn't know whether the Redskins could win under his leadership, and I think we know the answer to that question.
Right.
So I guess how do you feel about like? I guess do the owners matter that much?
The owners
I
have
think
an
so, but I'm
impact.
curious your thoughts.
Yeah, they have an impact. You have to work with your general manager, of course. I make it very clear with Popovich, if he stays out of the financial service business, I'll stay out of the coaching business. But where they do get our support is we have to listen to them because they are the experts in what they do. And I do the same thing in my company. You wouldn't want me heading up the accounting department in my company, okay? And I wouldn't try to tell our scouts on who they should draft and who they shouldn't draft because they have a great deal more knowledge. You have to give people space, but you have to hire the right people. You know, it's not an accident that we won the lottery pick. Every good player we've had over the last 2 to 3 years that Pop's developed, we would trade that good player, okay? That was by design. And that, of course, we weren't getting any better by doing that, but we stockpiled a lot of draft choices and gave us a better shot to be competitive in the lottery. And again, that's what you sit down and brainstorm about. And so the owners do have an impact, but in the Spurs situation, we're more the business side of the business.
Yeah.
Basketball operations, you listen to them and they brief us. That's what will happen tomorrow. Half our meeting will be business ops. The other half will be basketball ops. And you just have to hope you have the right people working for you. And over time, it'll tell if you do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've talked about this before, and I just think it's really interesting about sports teams as an investment because more and more of our legends are buying sports teams or are parts of sports teams. Janet Gerwich, one of our inductees this year, I think is one of the few female minority owners of a major league sports team. Is that an investment because you care about it, or is that an investment because it makes a ton of money?
It's a little bit of both. It's an ego thing. I think young man and now you said young women probably grow up wanting to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I'm old enough that we bought the Spurs 22 years ago for $84 million, and it was just valued at $4 billion. So it has tremendous appreciation. Now, when you go in and buy a team like Tillman bought the Rockets for, I think, $2 billion, and Mark Cuban paid $1 billion something. And Jerry Jones paid under $100 million for the Cowboys, and they're worth $6 billion or $7 billion. So it's an appreciative asset. Michael Dell became one of our partners last year, and so Michael's now one of our minority partners. And he didn't do it because he has necessarily a passion for basketball. History proves that it appreciates. TV contracts are getting bigger. Tickets aren't getting any cheaper. The beer's expensive. It's just an expensive business.
Yeah.
What can I
Money
say?
making.
Exactly.
Okay. The next question is from Kevin Long. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Charlie. First off, thank you for spending the time. This is a huge honor. I'm a big sports fan, big NBA fan, so it's really cool to pick your brain. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Outmore Living. We're a consumer tech company here in Austin, Texas. Our first product line is heated outdoor furniture. It's launching in a week on Kickstarter, so fingers crossed everything goes well there. My question for you is going to be centered around the Spurs. So I just recently watched a new David Beckham Netflix documentary. I see some people nodding their heads. I'm sure they saw it too. And one thing that stood out to me is Real Madrid made a trade for David Beckham, not because he necessarily fit with their team, but because of the marketability of him as a brand. And I think one of the things that's so amazing that the Spurs have done is not only gotten amazing players that have won championships, but amazing international players that probably expand the brand for the Spurs. So you have Manu from Argentina, you have Tony from France, and now Wembley. I'm curious, as you're going through those draft selections, how much you're weighing the fact that you can grow the brand of the San Antonio Spurs abroad versus this is just a great player fit.
Well, to be honest with you, we drafted Tony when he was 19 years old, and he still had a lot of development to go. And that's, I have to give R.C. Buford and Coach Popovich credit for that. They were actually pioneers in going to Europe and drafting players. 15 years ago, I take a couple trips with the team every year, and we had the Russian basketball coach on the team playing. Popovich has, over the years, and RC has networked with all these international basketball teams. And so we don't get a big name for that. When we get somebody like Victor, for instance, he's 19 years old. So we're not going to get a major big name. That's not our style. We would rather build from the core. You have younger players and build the franchise that way. I'm not going to say it will never happen. We have 3 first-round draft choices next year. Okay? So regardless of how we do this year, we could trade some of those draft choices to get a big name player and bring an older player in with our younger players. We're probably one of the youngest teams in the NBA right now. So we may do that. But it'll be the basketball operations decision, not the business guys like me. They will tell us and recommend that. And of course, they'll have our blessing to do because they know what they're doing.
Do you get to go to the draft?
Huh?
Do you go to the draft?
I have not gone to the draft. We have local draft things here for our fans, and I'll go to that.
Yeah.
I'm invited, of course. I can go if I want, but my travel schedule's so hectic in business. Sometimes I just enjoy staying in town.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Courtney Gallagher, thanks for asking a question.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. I'm always fascinated by what was the point at which you thought to yourself, oh yeah, I could do that. Clarifying, my mom was a flight attendant. My dad was a backseater in an F4. And when I was a little bitty, I said, hey mom, I want to be a flight attendant like you. And she said, heck no, you go fly the plane. And so they always encouraged me to go, be better, do better. And so at a very young age, I was like, I want to be the first female fighter pilot. At what point with your folks being entrepreneurs in a tugboat company did you go, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to do that?
Well, and we formed SWBC when Gary and I were week apart in age, 29 years old. So it took me a while to get out of college. I went into banking first and decided I learned a lot there, but that really wasn't for me. I worked at 2 different banks, and then Gary talked me into getting out of banking and going into sales because I was sort of a politician in college. And I'm a risk taker. I don't know if I ever had the confidence to do that, but I'm not afraid to take chances. One of the questions that Meredith was going to ask me, your favorite quote. Well, when I invested in the Spurs, a guy gave me a quote: you always miss 100% of the shots you never take. Okay. So I will take risk, and I'll take I'm not a gambler either. I don't go to Vegas and gamble, but I'll take calculated business risk. And even though I'm 76 years old, we have 3 major acquisitions pending now, which are sort of risky. But I'm just not afraid. I never bet the farm. I may lose money in this deal or that deal, but I never bet the farm. Just like you don't want to take off in a plane with a half a tank of fuel. You calculate your risk, and I'm a risk taker. Gary's a risk taker, but he's a little more conservative than I am, where he likes to put a lot of his money in certificates of deposits. I have a lot more in the stock market than he is. We're a lot alike in a lot of ways, but we're different in some ways. But that's what makes the world go around. But your mother was right.
And Courtney did it. She was a naval aviator.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I passed all my exams to be a naval pilot, and that's what I was going to do. And I flunked my physical. I have a pin in my left femur from football and a knee surgery from football. And that was during the Vietnam War, so I kind of washed out on my physical. But I wanted to be a naval pilot. That's what I wanted to do.
It was fun.
Yeah, they took me up in some beautiful planes. I got the feel. I've even been up in F-16. And what a joy that was. I mean, it's just really fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Okay, so Portia, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, I had a comment. Hi, Charlie. I just
Hi.
wanted to say I met you when I first got the scholarship. I think it was at the breakfast, and we talked about the San Antonio Spurs. And at that time, I was looking to work for a sports team. And I just wanted to tell you thank you, because from our conversation, and I gave you my information. I want to say maybe 3 weeks later from our conversation, I got a letter in the mail from the Spurs about a job that I did not apply for, but that was inviting me to come to get an interview. And I know that was your doing. I ended up going with the Houston Texans, but I just wanted to tell you thank you, and that you're just really a genuine person. And I just wanted to tell you thank you. So that's been many years ago. So
Yeah.
I just want to really just tell you thank you for that.
Well, thank you
Portia,
very
when
much.
did you get your award? from us?
2003.
Okay.
Charlie, you're
Are you
amazing.
still with the Texans?
Yes.
That's
Uh-huh.
great. Well, you're in it. You're in the business. That's great. That's great.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions before I close with one? Okay. This is sort of a personal question, Charlie, but one thing I have noticed about you are your friendships. And like I said earlier in this call, you have no enemies, but you just seem to have so many friendships, and not just casual friendships, like real friendships. That's hard. The older you get, the harder you realize, and the more you realize like how hard it is to sustain that. Like, what's your secret, or what is your biggest recommendation when it comes to keeping friendships?
Well, I try to stay in touch, even though everyone is probably as busy, if not busier as I am. I try to continue to communicate with the people. And a lot of us, we have personal interests together. We'll make side investments together. I have a lot of investments outside of SWBC. I'm even on a board of a fragrance company, if you can believe that. It's called Ellis Brooklyn. And I have some friends that are investors in that. And I got into that business by meeting with a lot of family offices in the Dallas area. They told me how good that was, how good of an investment that was. And then a fraternity brother of mine was president of Macy's, and he even told me even more good information. So L'Occitane, I can't pronounce it, Meredith. Can you? That's L'Occitane.
L'Occitane, that's what I
Yeah.
call it, but I'm sure it's wrong. I mean,
They
you and
just
I are both
invested
from East Texas.
in our company 2 weeks ago, and they're taking it international. So
Oh, wow.
when things
That's
work out for
huge.
the best, it's huge. So it's more than just SWBC. I'm a business junkie.
Yeah, and
You
a
know.
lot of those friendships are through business.
Yeah, it's in a lot of it's business.
Well, this was very interesting. You being so candid and open and vulnerable, of course, made it just twice as fascinating. So we appreciate you as always. We know you're busy. I'm sorry we couldn't see your dog in the background, and I won't tell your dog that you didn't mention her as your most treasured possession, but I have a feeling you're going to pay for that one tonight.
I
So good
will,
luck with
because she's very important to me, trust me. She went and visited my secretary. She hates me on Zoom calls. It drives her
Well, it's because
crazy.
you're not focused on her. Go give her some attention. But
I will do that.
it's so
Meredith,
good to see
I just want to
everyone.
call out. I just want to call out. We should be bottling Charlie's energy, and that's what we should be selling.
Well, you're kind.
Kidding.
We 20 of us would be drinking that right now.
Well, you're awfully kind. I appreciate that. It's a great
I feel
honor.
like I just have more energy from talking with you. So
Thanks.
appreciate everyone who's been on this call. This is our last one until after our event on November 2nd. So see you all November 2nd, including Charlie. Hopefully those of you who have not met him in person get to meet him at that dinner.
I'll be there.
And we'll see everyone soon. Thanks a
I hope to
bunch.
see all of you. Thank y'all very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.